Whelan Presley Funeral Home and Crematory have been serving Quad City families and veterans since 1889. Whelan Presley Funeral Homes are located in Rock Island, Milan, and Reynolds, and are proud supporters of WQPT. Alternatives is a proud supporter of WQPT and has been serving our community for 40 years. Alternatives provides professional guidance to maintain independence and quality of life for older adults and adults with disabilities.
Western Illinois will soon have a new congressman in the cities. For the past 10 years, Western Illinois has been represented in Congress by Democrat Cheri Bustos. She decided to retire, and it was never a certainty Democrats would hang on to the seat. But in November, Democrat Eric Sorensen defeated Republican Esther Joy King in the 17th Congressional District, a newly redrawn district after Illinois lost a congressional seat. Eric and I worked together for years when he was a meteorologist at WQAD-TV and I worked in the newsroom. And I got a chance to talk with him about this election, his priorities, and what he'll do to be an independent voice in Washington. Welcome to Washington, D.C. right now. What are your first impressions? Because you've been there a couple times since being elected.
Right. Oh, there's a lot to get to know. And, you know, you think that, you know, going in with no experience is a daunting task. Well, you know, it's building the teams of not only the people that know, but learning from the other representatives who are there, and then understanding that a lot of the representatives who are elected across the country are diverse. You know, we have teachers who were elected to Congress. We have a pediatrician that was elected to Congress. We have a woman who was an auto mechanic in Washington State who was elected to Congress, and a meteorologist. And so it's not possible to know everything right at the beginning, but the process of learning has already begun.
Is there also the process of bonding with the other freshmen? Because once you guys get in there for a while, it seems to be more of a party, more of a partisan issue. But with the freshman class, you seem to have that bond at least.
Right, and I think it goes beyond even the party lines in the beginning. A wise person told me the only time that you're really going to make good friends on the other side of the aisle is between Election Day and swearing-in day. And when I have been there to Washington to talk to people to say, wait a minute, you were the weatherman that was talking about climate change to farmers? I want to hear more about this. And I was hearing that from the Republicans. And so now I can say that I've got a good friend who works in a Republican district in Florida. I've got a good friend who works in East Texas as a new member of Congress. And so it's building those bonds to be able to say, hey, listen, these are the things that we need solved. Not only are they unique to our district, but they're similar to what you have to deal with in your district too.
The bonds are important, of course, but as a freshman, your power is so limited. Being one of the newbies in Washington, the way the entire Congress operates on the Senate and the House, I mean, it's tenure that really gives you a louder voice. What do you hope to do in your first months or your first 2 years?
Right. I think, you know, initially there is this strive to get everything accomplished. But understanding, though, we're in a slight minority as Democrats in the Congress. And so we aren't going to be able to have the levers of government that we need to do. Now, we need to make sure that we're working across the aisle, but that's also what the Republicans are going to have to do as well. And so I think that bipartisanship, and that's one thing that I think people will be able to look at closely over the course of the next year to say, who are the people that are working for our best interests? Who are the people that are reaching out across the aisle to get things done? But certainly as a freshman member of Congress, not being on the larger committees, there is going to be that challenge to be able to work with the leadership to get things done.
Tell me about your election. You beat a Republican who had done well 2 years ago against Cheri Bustos. You had basically, is it 52%? Almost 52% of the vote. So it's a very split district. So tell me what you think made you win in what one would think is a swing district, but also somewhat conservative.
I think that it all boiled down to trust. To even reach out or even to talk with people recently that have said, Eric, I voted across party lines to vote for you. because I trusted you. And in this particular district, it was also reaching out to young voters as well, and to be able to make the case in places that didn't know me. For instance, like Peoria County and McLean County. These were areas that we had to work hard to introduce myself, but also make the case that someone different was going to be better. And it turns out in the end, when it came to the election, our best county was McLean County.
What do you tell those people, that 48% who didn't think you were the best candidate?
Right, I think, and this is unique to this district in Illinois. This is the 50-50 district. And so...
And I guess that's the point I'm getting at, is that
right.
like if a Republican wins, you can't be a real conservative Republican as a Democrat, not necessarily the most liberal Democrat, because the district is split 50-50.
And I think that was, one of the things that people were looking at with my opponent too. There wasn't this moderate in the middle, which is generally what people around here are. People want results. And so what I want to do going forward, and what I will do going forward, is making sure that my decisions are representative of the district, and not necessarily representative of me. It's making sure that I am working for the 48% of the people that didn't vote for me, such that when time comes in 2 years, that it will be, instead of 52-48, it's going to be 54-46.
But you have progressive issues that you back. One is some of the issues on climate change, LGBTQ rights, things along those lines. What do you say to that 48% that they're going to go, and they're going to say it, is that he's too progressive, he doesn't have my beliefs, and he votes with Pelosi and Biden 98% of the time?
Well, first of all, I've never voted with anyone, so they can't say that yet.
But you know what I mean, in the future.
But it's yeah. I mean, I'm progressive on some issues because I believe that we have to do something about climate change, and it's not just that I'm going to demand it, it's that our kids are going to demand it, our grandkids are going to demand that we do the right things. And I'm not even saying that there's a solution. I'm just saying that we've got to do the right things going forward. And also, by doing the right things going forward, it's going to be an investment in jobs. When we talk about sustainability, it's making sure that we're doing the right thing, but also doing the right thing for our families so that we have better jobs going forward, so that kids have jobs going forward. And then when it comes to LGBTQ issues, the fact is that I had a reporter ask me after the election, Jim, how did you make you being gay part of the campaign? And I said, wait a minute, we didn't. People welcomed me into their homes knowing I was different. For 20 years here, it wasn't an issue here. And you know what? We didn't make it part of the campaign because we were talking about kitchen table issues. And that was what was important. And that's what's important going forward. My being LGBTQ or part of the community does not mean that's how I'm going to legislate. But certainly I believe that we need inclusion. And this is already a very inclusive congressional district. When
you talk about climate change, you do also point out the flooding that we've seen along the Mississippi River. I mean, that's not a coincidence. You point out how climate change is really impacting farmers. I mean, it just really, this is impacting you in so many different ways. People are going to sit there, and you know this as well, and they're going to say, yeah, but all you're going to do is regulate or add more taxes in order to push an agenda that would either be electric cars or whatever when it comes to climate change. What do you say to that criticism?
I think it's a step-by-step process.
Because one person's incentive is another person's push.
Right, but it's always been that way too. And what we need to make sure that we do is that we're doing the right things. That as we make a step forward, we've analyzed where we're stepping and how we're stepping. For instance, I was talking with the Illinois Farm Bureau at their annual convention in Chicago a couple of weeks ago. And we were talking about ethanol fuels, right? Well, what happens is more people are buying electric vehicles that aren't using the ethanol, and so is that incentive going to be there for our farmers? And I would say yes, because as we move away from ethanol in our gas pump, right? I think it opens up an opportunity for us to use biofuels and aviation fuel. Because certainly we've got to move forward with making aviation more friendly to the environment. So it will be up to me, and I will fight for the farmers here that they have that sustainability. And that's going to be important as we go forward.
You brought up farmers. You know the farm bill's coming up. It's a 5-year farm bill. The greatest portion of it, of course, is SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Program for women and children and families, of course. Last time, 5 years around, they couldn't come to an agreement on the farm bill, and it was a huge problem.
It's frustrating.
What have you heard along the campaign trail? Because the people in the rural community know this farm bill's coming up as well. They want the safety net. They want the protection. What do you say to them?
I also heard when I was in Chicago at the annual convention that we need to make sure that SNAP is funded and that SNAP remains part of the farm bill because it makes up more than 50% of the farm bill. And so
do you think that's going to actually happen? That it's going to remain in the farm bill? Because there's such a huge push each time this comes up is to separate it.
Well, and one of the things that we're going to have, it's going to be an uphill climb because the Republicans have taken control of the House. However, as we're discussing the farm bill and putting the pieces together, it has to get through the Senate. And so there has to be bipartisan work in the farm bill in order to get it to the Senate and then get it to the president.
Well, as you well know, I mean, the farm bill used to be bipartisan. It was basically rural lawmakers against urban, and it's the same thing with infrastructure bills, where every single person in Congress was involved in the infrastructure bill, liked it because it was bringing stuff back to the district. But that partisanship, as you saw in the infrastructure bill that was just passed, it's still very much alive. So, I mean, is it possible to get a non-political farm bill these days?
Maybe I'm too pragmatic, but I believe that there is when we talk about data and science, data, value, and science, and we put those into the equations for the farm bill to understand. Let's take the partisanship out of the farm bill and say, what do our farmers need? What does agriculture need? And let's make this happen. And it's going to be tough, but I'll tell you what. We need to make sure that, for instance, we're doing the right things for our family farmers. I've gotten to know family farmers over the course of not just in the campaign, but in 20 years of being on television here and talking with farmers. You and I, if we have hardships in our careers, we can find the path for another career. And the problem is for family farmers is when you've been on your farm for 5 generations and, for instance, the climate is making it more and more difficult or even impossible to do what your grandparents have done. We have too many farmers that instead of quitting their jobs, they can't. They quit their life. And so it's going to be Congress's job to make sure that the farmers that we have in this district and across the Midwest, the breadbasket of the nation, have what it takes to succeed. And we've got to take partisanship out of that.
Talk about partisanship a little bit longer. January 6th Commission, investigating what happened in the insurrection, criticized as being a partisan body in the House. What do you think is going to be the lasting impact of the committee's work? Republicans are going to come in and supposedly some want to investigate the investigators. Do you think that's what's going to be 2023?
I think the Justice Department is going to decide the longevity and the legacy of what happened with the January 6th Commission. But it's also going to be telling if we go into a new Congress, in the 118th Congress, instead of looking at inflation and bringing costs down, instead of looking at the environment and making sure that our environment is going to be beneficial for our kids, if there are politicians and if the Republican Party decides that they're going to go after Hunter Biden's laptop, are they really working for the people? I would say no. We need to make sure that we're working for the people, and what the people need today are results from Congress.
What do you think is going to be the impact of the insurrection? I mean, there's already people that deny the impact of it, the seriousness of it. Do you think, much like 9/11 had an impact on the country, this activity that happened inside the Capitol is going to have a long-term effect on lawmakers?
I think there are certainly lawmakers on the far right, the conspiracy theorists, the ones that believe in this QAnon conspiracy theory. They're going to continue to have the microphone on their lapel. They're going to continue to speak. But it's the majority of Congress. It's the majority of the people in our government that are elected by the people that are going to get the work done. And I hope that in the next 2 years, the people are looking at who's getting the work done, who is working for me. Because in the end, the people are paying my salary. And so, for instance, for me, I will be working for the people because I know that in 2 years they will make a decision on whether or not I'm worthy to continue the job.
COVID-19 restrictions. That's expected to be the COVID response of the American health community is expected to be analyzed much closer in the year to come as well. You're looking back at what we went through in both Illinois, and you saw the other side in Iowa, where it was a little more liberal than what you actually saw with the restrictions in Illinois. What did you learn from COVID-19, and are we ready for the next pandemic?
Well, one of the things that I look back on, Jim, is we really didn't have wonderful communication of the science. We went into this pandemic, all of us collectively, not knowing anything about it. And as science was making innovations and discovery, that wasn't really communicated well. We need better communication of science when it comes to not only COVID, but RSV, with the flu. But looking forward, we need to make sure that we're doing what's best for our communities, for our kids. One of the things that I look back on is the fact that we brought our kids out of school for their safety. But we need to make sure that going into the future, that, for instance, schools have the ability with HVAC systems to recirculate the air in their classrooms. For instance, if there is an ability to recirculate the air, not only would this be better for the COVID-19 pandemic or the future pandemic that is, hopefully 100 or years or more away, but what happens if our kids aren't spreading the cold, the common cold? What if our kids aren't spreading the flu because they've got good air circulation in their school? Well, guess what? They're not going to spread it to their classmates and to their families, but they're going to learn. We have to understand that the innovations that come out of COVID-19 are going to help the next generation, and we need to focus on that.
So you think the message should have been clearer off the top?
Correct.
The education should have been better towards the American public. So the next pandemic, the question though also is the restrictions that were put into place, the mask wearing. You've seen what's happened in schools. You've seen what's happened to children, that they have fallen back in their education, and mental health issues have increased quite a bit in that generation, in that age group. That's the type of legacy that I'm wondering concerns you as well.
And this is hard. This was incredibly difficult. It was difficult, not only because we had to do the things to mitigate it, but so many of our family members, we don't have them with us today because of the millions that have died from COVID-19. So we need to do more for them. For their legacy, to make sure that the next pandemic, or even moving forward with innovation, is done in a way that that helps us remember the people that we lost in the pandemic.
You got the pandemic, you got the war in Ukraine, and that's all impacting the economy. You're seeing inflation rates that we hadn't seen in decades. It's getting better, but would you say it's getting better or less? Worse is one way to say it. So what do you see for 2023 as far as the economy is concerned, and what role does Congress have to improve the economy?
Right, when we look at the economy, or specifically the supply chain, we've got to gradually get out of it, right? It's not just going down and then turning around and going right back up. So it is figuring out how we can make sure that the supply chain is stronger going forward. But also understanding that going through a worldwide pandemic, it's going to be hard to get out of. And that's why we need the results for the people today. Now, what can Congress do? We can look forward, and I think a lot has been done with the Inflation Reduction Act. A lot has been done with the bipartisan infrastructure bill, that we're going to put people to work. We're going to be able to put people to work so that they can feed their families. That is important as the costs go up, but we also have to bring the costs down. We're seeing that gas costs are down. Remember, they were $5 a gallon. Now across the river from here, they're $2.50 or less a gallon. So we've eased a little bit of that burden. We also have to ease the burden of food costs. The price of, that's the one thing that, we as Midwesterners, we understand. At Aldi used to be able to get the gallon of milk for $1.99
right,
and the dozen eggs for 99 cents. Well, that didn't come down, right? So we do need to make sure that the costs do come down for the everyday consumer.
Talk about Ukraine. Talk about some of the foreign government. Are we spending too much money? Are we getting to the point that it's not worth this much funding in Ukraine?
I think we always have to understand what supporting democracy is worth. And for me, looking at this democracy of Ukraine being bombed, and people losing their lives, people losing their cities, their homes, and understanding that the rest of the world is watching what Russia is doing. We need to make sure that we're on the right side of history. Because as we're seeing what is happening here, what China and Taiwan could have in the future, what Iran and Israel could have, or even our own democracy is in jeopardy, or was on January 6th. We need to make sure that democracies around the world are as strong as they are. And that's where I would push back from the extremists on the far right who say, we need to take away all of this funding for Ukraine, because I believe that just hands Russia a win.
And then you look at China. You look at how they've dealt with the COVID restrictions. You take a look at even Homeland Security saying you shouldn't have TikTok on your phone. Would you support greater restrictions or even an outright ban on something such as TikTok, which is owned by the Chinese government in ways?
Well, my colleague Raja Krishnamurthy of Illinois has come out in support of that. But certainly we have to look at where our best interests are and what kind of data that we are giving out on our phones. To be understanding that there isn't anything more sought after by our adversaries than our data.
Education is also one of the biggest issues that you're ever going to see. When you were going around your district, what did you hear in regards to what the federal government should do to improve our schools?
Well, we have to understand that a lot of our school funding, not only does it come from the federal government, it comes from local governments as well. And so what I believe we need to do in Congress is to ease the burden of the tax structure for local communities such that they can invest more in schools and education. We also need to make sure that our education system is supportive of the people and the kids that want to go into trade schools, that want to go into unions and apprenticeships, and then also community college and four-year college institutions, that they have the ability to do that.
We just have a few moments left, and I want to get this in. What do you say to the people that voted for you and those that did not? As the person who's going into Congress, what do you hope to have as a white paper, a blank slate? What do you hope to do for your constituents? Well,
one of the things is to be able to have the open door, to be able to have the phone that rings and the congressperson, I will answer it. And that's something that I will continue from Cheri Bustos, who had an incredible constituent services. That is number one for me. It's not anything ideologic. It's number one, we have to get the work done for the people here. So if the Social Security check didn't come in, if our veterans aren't getting what they need from the VA, if someone is having trouble getting a passport, I mean, all of these things, you're going to have someone in the office, including myself, that will be working on solving these problems and then looking at these greater problems in the future and saying, all right, what kind of friendships, what can we do with colleagues to get the real work done so that the solutions come right home.
Congressman-elect Eric Sorensen. He'll be sworn in this Tuesday at the U.S. Capitol. We're ready to end 2022 and kick off the new year with some great events in the cities, and Laura Adams gives us a rundown of some of them as she gets you ready to go out and about.
This is Out and About for December 30th through January 5th. You still have a few opportunities to see Winter Nights, Winter Lights at the Quad City Botanical Center, closing January 1st. Plus, World Championship Motorcycle Ice Racing is coming to the Vibrant Arena on the 30th, while soccer fans will love Keeper Wars, a New Year's Eve event at the TBK Bank Sports Complex on the 31st and 1st. For kids, there's New Year's Eve at the Family Museum on the 31st, and at night, Johnny Lyons Elvis Tribute at Bally's Quad Cities. Rhythm City Casino present Class of 82 on the 30th, Smooth Groove and 10 of Soul on New Year's Eve, a Gatsby New Year's Eve at the Axis Hotel, the Renwick Mansion's New Year's Red Carpet event, All Sweat 80s Ladies New Year's Eve concert featuring female vocalists from over 8 bands at the Redstone Room. Then there's a New Year's Eve bash with country music star Cooper Allen at the Mississippi Valley Fairgrounds, while the Bend Event Center present a roaring New Year's Eve. The Buffalo Community Center hosts a New Year's Eve comedy show on the 30th, and after all that partying, go go to Wildcat Den for a first day hike. And don't forget to catch Davenport Central's Blue Devils Marching Band in the London New Year's Day Parade on WQPT, the first, starting at 6 a.m. For more information, visit WQPT.org.
Thank you, Laura. Charlotte Boyer was a phenom in Rock Island High School and a contestant 2 years ago on The Voice television show, and a lover of music since she was just a child. It was a few years ago when she took to the stage of the Black Box Theater to perform for us. So here's Charlotte Boyer with Free Like a Bird.
Whoa, wouldn't it be nice if I could fly? Because I'd be the bravest bird in the sky. Whoa, I'd be free from all of my pain. Whoa, I'd be free to fly away. Yes, I see the little children playing in the street. They all look so young, wild and free. That was exactly what I wanted to be. Live all my days young, wild and free. And now that I am free, I can spread my wings. No, there is no worrying for me. I feel like I'm a little kid again. Don't worry, my friend, I'll see you again. But just promise me you'll always give and love. Now you should follow this promise, it isn't tough. And I'll tell you this, you got to learn to love. Yeah, I am free, I am free, I am free just like a bird. I am free, I am free, I am free just like a bird. I am free, I am free, I am free just like a bird. I am free, I am free, I am free just like a bird.
Charlotte Boyer with Free Like a Bird, performed at the Black Box Theater in Moline. And thank you for joining us. We hope you had a great Christmas, and please enjoy your New Year's celebrations. We'll be back with you in the new year with a preview of the legislative sessions in both Iowa and Illinois. We hope you'll join us on the air, on the radio, on the web, on your mobile device, and streaming on your computer. Thanks for taking some time to join us as we talk about the issues on the cities.
Whelan Presley Funeral Home and Crematory have been serving Quad City families and veterans since 1889. Whelan Presley Funeral Homes are located in Rock Island, Milan, and Reynolds, and are proud supporters of WQPT. Alternatives is a proud supporter of WQPT and has been serving our community for 40 years. Alternatives provides professional guidance to maintain independence and quality of life for older adults and adults with disabilities.